Okay, so in this project we worked with the Neville algorithm. So we were given the Neville of 3 points, which essentially I'm going to try to explain the intuition behind taking the 3-point Neville algorithm and extending that to 4 points. So with 3 points, you have 2 lines that go up like this. And what Neville does is it calculates at some time, this would be time 0, and this would be time 2, for example, and this is 1. So it draws a curve like this between these 3 points, and each section along the curve is a certain percentage from here to a point up there, which would be the interpolation between these 2 points. So that's how it draws the curve. So extending that to 4 points, you would add another point out here at time equals 3, and you would draw a curve like this, and then instead of taking the interpolation between the 2 straight lines extended between 2 points, you would compute Neville's algorithm for this curve and then for this curve, and then you would compute the interpolation between this curve and then the other curve that extends way up here. So at time 0, it would get the interpolation between these 2 points. So that's basically the intuition behind the Neville's algorithm and taking it to 4 points.
So here's the code that we used to create the first part, and so I essentially added a function here, Neville, which takes in 4 points and a float, and pretty simply it just says the point P equals Neville of the 3 points, which is this original Neville function up here, and then point Q equals Neville and takes in B, C, and D, and then it returns the interpolation here. So that's pretty much the same, except extends it to 4 points. And then also filled in this draw Neville function, which goes from, the for loop goes from 0 to 3, since we have 3 different periods, and then draws the curve. We're showing here the code that produces the 4x4 grid animation. So I added the draw curve function here, which takes in 4 points, and this curve function here, which takes in 4 points as well as a float and returns a point. This curve function is essentially the same as the Neville algorithm that we used in the last part. And then the draw curve, what it does is it draws the actual animated curve for each frame. So this draw curve is called every time the screen is refreshed. So we're going to show you some cool animations in the next part. Here we'd like to show some of the advantages and disadvantages of using 3 points versus 4 points. So the 3-point curve, you only have 3 points, so you can't move it around quite as much, and so you're limited by the number of shapes that you can create. On the 4-point, however, you can do a lot more. For example, we can take point 0 and drag it way down here. We can take point 12 and drag it way up top. And you can see that the animation, the curve actually crosses at some point. You can't do this with the 3-point 3x3 grid. There's a whole bunch of other cool shapes that you can make with using 4x4 grid. So it allows for a lot more versatility in creating animations.